I was 24 years old when my life felt like it was held together by nothing more than duct tape and hope. My name is Alice, and for as long as I can remember, I had lived with the constant fear of not being enough. Not good enough for jobs, not rich enough to belong, not polished enough to be noticed in a world that values appearances more than effort. Every morning I woke up in my tiny rented room staring at the cracked ceiling and reminding myself that survival is its own kind of strength. But deep down I longed for more. I longed for a chance, just one, to show that I mattered. That chance, strangely enough, began with the humiliating reflection of a car window. It was the morning of my most important interview. I had rushed through the streets, my resume crumpled in my fist, my blazer wrinkled from being pressed under heavy books. Sweat glued strands of hair to my forehead as I whispered to myself, "If I miss this, it's over. I can't afford another rejection." When I reached the tall glass building, my heart nearly collapsed from both exhaustion and fear. But before stepping in, I caught sight of a sleek black car parked at the curb. Its windows gleamed like a perfect mirror, and I, desperate to look composed, stopped to fix myself, adjusting my blouse, tugging at my bra strap, dabbing lipstick on trembling lips. It was a private act performed in what I thought was anonymity, until the window rolled down. I froze, my hand halfway to my mouth, a piece of lettuce from breakfast embarrassingly stuck between my teeth. And there he was, a man who looked like he had walked straight out of the pages of a glossy magazine. His hair perfect, his suit impeccable, and his eyes fixed on me with quiet amusement. "Need help with that?" he asked. "Or would you prefer a professional mirror?" My cheeks burned hotter than fire. I wanted the ground to open and swallow me whole. But instead of fleeing, I lifted my chin with the last shred of pride I had. "Let me know if you find my dignity," I said, because I seemed to have dropped it. He laughed, not cruelly but softly, as if I had surprised him. That laugh haunted me all the way into the building. My heart was still pounding when the receptionist led me into a conference room. I perched on the chair, straightened my papers, and told myself to breathe. And then the door opened. The man from the car, the stranger who had just witnessed me in the most humiliating state of my life, walked in. Only now I knew his name. Nicholas Smith, the CEO. The man who held my future in his hands. I nearly choked on air. "You," I gasped. "Me," he replied with a grin. "And you're the woman with the lipstick and the lettuce." At that moment I wanted to disappear. Instead, I sat across from him, trembling as he scanned my resume. Yet to my surprise, he didn't mock me. He didn't dismiss me. Instead, he asked questions, teased lightly, and listened, truly listened, when I spoke from my heart. I admitted I didn't have an Ivy League degree or polished connections, but I promised I had resilience, creativity, and a will to fight for every opportunity. For the first time in years, someone looked at me as if I wasn't invisible, and then impossibly he hired me. From that day on, my life was never the same. I walked into his company as nothing more than an ordinary assistant, but I carried with me the scars of poverty, the weight of constant rejection, and the stubborn spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, I could change my fate. But hope is never simple. Working beside Nicholas meant stepping into a storm of expectations, whispers, and scrutiny. Colleagues called me Miss Lettuce behind my back, laughing at the ridiculous way I had met the CEO. I laughed with them sometimes, pretending it didn't hurt, but inside every word cut deep. I tried to bury the shame, to prove myself through hard work, but the ghost of that first humiliation never left me. And then came the first test. Nicholas invited me to sit in on a meeting with investors. Me barely 2 days into the job. I thought it was a mistake, a cruel joke, until I realized he truly wanted me there. My hand shook as I walked into the room filled with polished executives, their expensive suits gleaming under the lights. When he turned to me mid-presentation and asked for my thoughts, I nearly fainted. But somehow I found the words. I spoke simply, honestly, turning a complicated question into something human and relatable. To my shock, the room laughed, not at me but with me. They nodded, they listened, and in Nicholas's eyes I saw something shift. It was the beginning of something I couldn't yet name. Something terrifying and fragile. Something that would force me to confront not only the wounds of my past, but also the possibility of love in the unlikeliest of places. The next weeks passed in a blur of long hours, hurried notes, and the constant pressure of proving I deserved the chair I sat in. Every morning, I reminded myself that I was still Alice, the poor girl, who used a car window as a mirror, and not the polished assistant others assumed belonged in Nicholas Smith's empire. But Nicholas had a way of pulling me out of my own shadows. He asked for my opinions in meetings, trusted me with tasks that made seasoned employees raise their eyebrows, and treated me with a respect I had never known before. It scared me because respect was a gift I had never learned to trust. Still, the whispers never stopped. "She's just a charity case," I heard one woman sneer in the break room. "He probably hired her to amuse himself. She won't last a month," another voice added, laughing. "Pretty little accident with a lettuce leaf won't save her when she fails." I pretended not to hear. I smiled, nodded, even joined in their jokes about me sometimes, because it was easier than showing how much it hurt. But every word carved another wound into my heart. One evening after a long day, I lingered in the office long after everyone else had left. The city lights outside painted the glass walls in gold and silver, and I sat at my desk staring at my trembling hands. I didn't hear him come in until his voice broke the silence. "You're hiding here again," Nicholas said softly. I looked up, startled. He leaned against the doorframe. His tie loosened, his eyes studying me with an intensity that made me want to shrink into my chair. "I just needed a quiet moment," I mumbled. He walked closer, his footsteps echoing in the empty office. "You work harder than anyone I know, and yet you look like you're carrying the weight of the world. Who put it there?" I hesitated, biting my lip. For so long I had kept my struggles locked inside, afraid of being judged or pitied. But something about the way he looked at me, steady, unwavering, broke through my defenses. "They laugh at me," I whispered. "They think I don't belong. And maybe they're right. Maybe I'm just the girl who adjusted her bra in your car window. Maybe that's all I'll ever be." The words spilled out before I could stop them. My cheeks burned with shame, and I turned away, staring out at the glowing city to hide my tears. But Nicholas didn't laugh. He didn't dismiss me. Instead, he moved closer, his voice low but firm. "Alice, you don't define yourself by what they say. You define yourself by what you do, and I've seen what you do. You don't just belong here, you make this place better." His words sank deep, filling the hollow spaces inside me. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not as a mistake, not as a charity case, but as a woman with worth. And yet that terrified me more than anything, because being seen meant being vulnerable. And vulnerability was dangerous. The danger became clear at the company's annual gala. It was the kind of event I had only ever glimpsed through glossy magazines, crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, gowns that shimmered like stars. I borrowed a simple black dress from a thrift shop, sewing a tear in the hem with trembling fingers, and prayed no one would notice. When Nicholas saw me enter the hall, his gaze lingered just a second too long. I caught it, and so did others. Whispers started again, sharper this time, aimed not just at me but at him. "Look at her, the maid among royalty. Is he serious about her? Or is this just entertainment?" The cruelty in their voices pierced me, but I forced myself to stand tall. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Still, when Nicholas offered me his arm and led me onto the dance floor, my chest ached with the weight of their judgment. As we moved to the music, he leaned down, his voice barely audible over the violins. "Ignore them. Just look at me." I lifted my eyes to his, and for a fleeting moment the room disappeared. The chandeliers, the whispers, the laughter all faded into silence. There was only his gaze, steady and unyielding, holding me together when I wanted to fall apart. But then, just as I began to believe in that fragile moment, I felt it, the icy stare of someone watching from across the room. A woman in a glittering gown, her lips curled into a cruel smile, her eyes fixed on me as if I were prey she intended to destroy. In that instant, I knew my story with Nicholas was about to become far more complicated than I had ever imagined. Her name was Victoria Hale, and I would come to learn that she was not only Nicholas's former fiancée, but also the woman who had once been destined to share his empire. That night at the gala, she glided toward us with the grace of a queen reclaiming her throne. Her every step calculated, her eyes fixed on me like daggers. "Nick," she purred, her voice rich with mock sweetness, "you didn't tell me you'd be bringing such unusual company." The laughter around us was subtle but cruel, the kind that cuts deeper than any shouted insult. I felt my cheeks burn, but Nicholas's grip on my hand tightened. "Victoria," he said, his tone cold as steel. "This is Alice. She belongs here more than most people I know." The words sent a shiver through me, equal parts comfort and terror. Because while he had defended me, he had also declared me a declaration that only made me a bigger target. Victoria's smile sharpened. She leaned closer, whispering so only I could hear, "Enjoy this moment, darling. Men like Nicholas always tire of their toys." Her perfume lingered as she swept away, leaving me trembling on the dance floor. Nicholas frowned, his eyes searching mine. "Don't listen to her," he said. But the damage was done. The poison of her words had already seeped into my heart. That night when I returned home, I stood in front of the cracked mirror in my tiny apartment, staring at the woman reflected back. The borrowed dress, the painted lips, the trembling hands. Was this really me? Or was Victoria right? Was I just a poor girl pretending to be someone else's equal, destined to be discarded once the novelty wore off? The days that followed were heavier than before. Whispers in the office grew louder, crueler. Some called me the replacement, others the maid with a millionaire. Every comment chipped away at the fragile confidence I had begun to build. Yet Nicholas remained steadfast. He treated me no differently, continued to trust me, to seek my counsel, to draw me into his world. And slowly, against my will, I found myself falling, not just for the life I had stumbled into, but for him. For the man who laughed softly when I surprised him, who listened when no one else did, who looked at me as if I wasn't invisible. But love, I knew, was dangerous. Love meant opening doors to wounds that had never healed. One afternoon, as I filed papers in Nicholas's office, I stumbled upon a photograph tucked into a drawer. It was of him and Victoria, smiling under a cascade of roses, their hands entwined, as if they had once been unbreakable. My chest tightened, my breath catching. I didn't hear Nicholas walk in until he was beside me. "You found it," he said quietly. I set the photo down, my hands trembling. "You loved her." "I thought I did," he replied. "Until she showed me who she really was. Love built on status, appearances, lies. That isn't love at all." His eyes searched mine, steady and unwavering. "What I feel with you, Alice. It's the first thing in years that feels real." His confession should have filled me with joy, but instead it terrified me. Real was dangerous. Real meant I could lose it. Real meant I could lose him. And as if fate itself wanted to remind me of that truth, Victoria wasn't done. She began appearing everywhere, in the lobby of the office, at charity events, even outside the building where I lived. Her presence was a constant shadow, her smile a constant threat. Then came the night she cornered me alone in the hallway of a hotel, where Nicholas was hosting an investor dinner. She stepped out of the shadows, her gown glittering under the dim light, her voice dripping with venom. "You'll never survive in his world," she said. "I know women like you, clinging to scraps, mistaking pity for love. When he sees who you truly are, he'll leave you broken." Her words struck like thunder, echoing in the hollow places inside me. And yet, instead of breaking, something inside me sparked. I looked her in the eye, my voice trembling but firm. "Maybe I don't belong in his world, but at least I'm not hiding behind lies. That's more than you can say." For the first time, her smile faltered. That small victory carried me through the night. But deep down, I knew the war had only just begun. Because if Victoria was willing to haunt me like a ghost, I could only imagine what she would do when she decided to strike. I tried to convince myself that Victoria's words were nothing more than empty threats, but her shadow lingered everywhere I turned. Each morning, I stepped into the office with my heart pounding, expecting to see her perched in the lobby, her cruel smile waiting. Each evening, I hurried home with Miguel's photo clutched tight in my bag, terrified she might try to use the only family I had left against me. The tension gnawed at me until I began to unravel. I made mistakes at work, tiny slips at first but noticeable. I dropped files, forgot calls, even stumbled over my words during a presentation Nicholas had trusted me to lead. Whispers rose again among the staff, sharper than ever. "She's slipping. He'll replace her soon." One evening I stayed late, sitting alone in the empty office with tears staining the papers on my desk. I didn't hear Nicholas walk in until he was beside me. He reached for the papers, setting them aside, his expression etched with concern. "Alice," he said softly, You're burning out. What's happening? I shook my head, unable to meet his eyes. I'm not strong enough for this world. I thought I could handle it, but… My voice cracked, shame flooding through me. Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't belong here. Nicholas knelt beside my chair, lifting my chin with his hand until my eyes met his. Don't you dare believe that. You've survived worse than this. I've watched you walk into fire and come out stronger. His words should have soothed me, but they only sharpened the ache inside. Because I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that I could belong not just in his company but in his life. And yet the fear of losing him, of being discarded like Victoria warned, haunted me. That fear only deepened when an invitation arrived at the office. A glossy envelope addressed to Nicholas, but handed to me by mistake. I opened it without thinking and my stomach dropped. It was from Victoria. A charity gala hosted by her family with Nicholas listed as a guest of honor. The note inside was written in her elegant hand. One last chance to remember what you lost. When I handed it to Nicholas later, he glanced at it once and tossed it aside. She's desperate, he muttered. I have no intention of going, but the night of the gala, when I arrived at the office to drop off files, I saw him dressed in his black tuxedo, adjusting his cufflinks, preparing to leave. My chest tightened. You said you wouldn't go. He hesitated, then sighed. Business requires it. Investors, donors. I can't avoid her forever. The words sliced through me. Logic told me he was right, but my heart screamed otherwise. The thought of him standing beside Victoria, even for one evening, made my stomach twist with dread. I turned to leave before he could see the tears welling in my eyes, but his voice stopped me. Alice, he said, and when I looked back, his eyes were steady, burning with something fierce. No matter what happens tonight, remember this: you are not replaceable, not to me. His words echoed in my chest long after he left, but the fear remained. Because promises are fragile, and love especially. Love born in the ruins of humiliation felt like the most fragile thing of all. I spent the night pacing my apartment, every minute a war between trust and terror. And when midnight came, and Nicholas still hadn't returned, I knew one thing with painful certainty: Victoria wasn't finished. And whatever she had planned for that gala, it was aimed at me. When Nicholas finally returned from the gala, it was nearly dawn. I was waiting by the window of his penthouse, my hands trembling as I clutched the edge of the curtain. The moment the door opened, I turned and saw him. His tuxedo disheveled, his face shadowed with exhaustion. Don't, he said before I could speak. His voice was low, frayed at the edges. She tried, Alice. She tried everything. My heart hammered. What did she do? He loosened his tie with a bitter laugh. She paraded me around the room like a prize she had already won. Told every investor that I was still hers, that you were nothing more than a distraction. Then she showed them photos, grainy, twisted images of you leaving my apartment. She spun a story that you're using me to claw your way into wealth. And for a moment, his voice faltered and he looked away. For a moment, I saw some of them believe her. Shame and fury tangled inside me. I wanted to shout, to break something, but all I could whisper was, so this is what she'll do, tear me down until I have nothing left. Nicholas crossed the room in 2 strides and caught my hands. No, this is what she thinks she can do. But she underestimates you and us. I wanted to believe him. I wanted his words to be enough. But the image of powerful men and women laughing at my name behind crystal glasses clawed at me. And what if she's right? I whispered. What if I am nothing more than the girl who embarrassed herself in your car window? What if I never belong in your world? He tilted my chin, forcing my eyes to meet his. His voice dropped, soft but unshakable. Alice, you belong wherever you choose to stand, and I choose to stand with you. The intensity in his gaze made my knees weak. For a breathless moment the walls between us cracked, and I saw something I had tried to deny: love, raw and terrifying, blazing in his eyes. But even love couldn't silence the storm that followed. The next week tabloids exploded with headlines: CEO's affair with exposed maid, from mirror to millionaire scandal unfolds. My face was plastered everywhere, my story twisted into mockery. Neighbors avoided me, colleagues whispered louder, and Miguel came home from school with tears in his eyes after classmates shoved the newspapers in his face. I felt myself breaking. One night, after Miguel had cried himself to sleep, I sat on the balcony staring out at the endless city lights. My body shook with silent sobs, and for the first time I thought of running. leaving Nicholas, leaving this ward, disappearing back into the shadows, where no one could touch me. But then Nicholas came, placing his jacket over my shoulders, his warmth grounding me. "You're stronger than this storm," he said. "But if you can't see it right now, then lean on me until you can." His words didn't erase the pain, but they gave me something else: resolve. If Victoria thought she could shame me back into invisibility, she was wrong. I had already survived too much poverty, rejection, humiliation. I wouldn't let her win this battle, not when Nicholas's faith and Miguel's love were at stake. And so, with trembling hands but a steady heart, I made a choice. I would fight back, not with lies or cruelty, but with the one weapon she had never expected me to wield: truth. What I didn't know then was how deep her schemes truly ran, or how much darker the road ahead would become once the final secret came to light. The first step in fighting back was terrifying: stepping into the light on my own terms. Nicholas arranged a press interview against my protests. "If you let her control the narrative, Alice, she wins," he said firmly. "The only way to silence her lies is to speak your truth." The morning of the interview, I stood in front of the mirror, my hands trembling, as I adjusted the thrift store blazer I'd worn to my first day at his company. My reflection looked nothing like the polished executives I had once envied. My hair wasn't perfect, my eyes were swollen from nights of crying, and my lips trembled when I whispered, "You can do this." When the cameras began rolling, my heart pounded so loud I thought the microphones would catch it. The reporter asked about my past, about the humiliating way Nicholas and I first met, about the rumors that I was a social climber clawing for wealth. For the first time, I didn't hide. I told the truth. I spoke of poverty, of rejection, of scraping by with 2 jobs just to feed Miguel. I admitted the embarrassment of that day with the car window, the shame of being mocked in whispers at the office. But I also told them about resilience, about the determination that kept me standing when everything told me to fall. And finally, I spoke of Nicholas, not as a millionaire, not as a savior, but as a man who saw me when no one else bothered to look. By the time I finished, the studio was silent. The reporter's eyes softened, the camera zoomed closer, and for the first time in weeks I felt free. The interview went viral. Some mocked me still, but others, many others, saw themselves in my story. Messages poured in from strangers, women who had been dismissed, men who had been overlooked, children who grew up invisible. For them, I was no longer a scandal. I was proof. But while the world wavered, Victoria burned. The next blow came swift and merciless. Documents surfaced, bank statements with my name forged on them, transfers suggesting I had siphoned money from Nicholas's accounts. Headlines screamed, "The maid exposed as a thief." I was summoned for questioning. Miguel cried when men in dark suits appeared at our door. My hands shook as I signed papers swearing my innocence. The shame was crushing, the fear suffocating. And for a brief, terrible moment I wondered if Nicholas would believe her lies over me. But when I looked into his eyes across the interrogation table, I saw no doubt, only fire. "We'll prove it," he told me. Together, investigators tore through the evidence, and slowly the cracks showed. The accounts weren't mine. The signatures forged, the trail leading back to companies linked to Victoria's family. Piece by piece, her empire of lies collapsed. The night the truth came out, I stood on Nicholas's balcony, the city alive below me. Exhaustion weighed on my bones, but relief fluttered weakly in my chest. "She'll never stop," I whispered. "Even now she'll find another way to hurt us." Nicholas stepped behind me, his arms wrapping around my shoulders, grounding me against the night wind. "Then let her try," he said. "Because as long as you're with me, she can't win." For the first time, I let myself lean into him fully, my heart raw but unguarded. And in that fragile silence, I knew the truth. This war wasn't about mirrors or wealth or humiliation. It was about love, the kind born in fire, the kind that survives even when the world tries to burn it away. But love comes with its own price. And soon I would learn that some wounds cut too deep to ever heal cleanly. In the weeks that followed, I tried to believe the worst was over. The forged documents were exposed. Victoria's schemes unraveled in front of the world. And for the first time in years, Nicholas walked into his office without the weight of her shadow at his back. But peace is fragile, and mine was already cracking. I thought that once the lies were gone, the whispers would fade. Instead, they only changed shape. At dinners, I caught investors' wives staring at me with thin smiles, their eyes filled with judgment. At Miguel's school, parents whispered when I arrived, wondering if it was safe for their children to play with the scandal's sister. Even in the grocery store, I heard it. That's her, the maid who trapped a millionaire. Every time it cut me open again. And no matter how many times Nicholas told me I belonged, the wounds never closed. One night, as rain lashed against the windows of his penthouse, I sat curled on the couch, hugging my knees. Miguel was asleep in the next room, his small body safe and warm. But I couldn't shake the fear that one day Victoria or someone like her would rip even that safety away. Nicholas sat across from me, his jacket off, his shirt sleeves rolled up. He looked tired. The kind of tired that comes not from work, but from carrying someone else's pain. "Alice," he said gently. "You're somewhere else again. Talk to me." I shook my head. "I can't do this forever, Nicholas. I can't keep fighting the world just for the right to stand beside you." His jaw tightened, but his voice remained soft. "Then stop fighting the world. Fight with me. Don't you see you're not alone anymore?" My heart ached at his words. For so long I had survived by myself, no one to lean on, no one to share the weight. To let myself believe I wasn't alone anymore felt like walking a tightrope without a net. But when his hand reached across the space between us, warm and steady, I let mine rest in his, and for a fleeting moment, I believed him. But the world wasn't finished testing me. A week later, an invitation arrived. Another wedding. Not ours, not even close. It was Victoria's brother. And attached was a personal note written in her unmistakable hand. "Come and see how families truly protect their own." Every instinct in me screamed not to go. But Nicholas's gaze hardened when he read the note. "She wants to intimidate us. If we don't show up, she'll think she's won." And so, against my fear, I found myself once again standing in a glittering hall. Chandeliers raining light on people who looked at me as if I were dirt under their polished shoes. Nicholas stood tall at my side, but I felt every stare, every whisper. Halfway through the evening, Victoria made her move. She stood, her glass raised high, and her words cut through the laughter like knives. "To family," she said, her eyes glinting. "To loyalty, to blood, to those who know where they belong." Everyone laughed, clapped, toasted, but her gaze never left me. My chest tightened, my knees trembling. I wanted to run, to disappear, to crawl back into the shadows where I was invisible. But then Miguel's face flashed in my mind, the boy who looked to me for courage, the boy who believed I was stronger than the storm. So I stood taller. I forced my chin up, and though my voice shook, I whispered to myself, "I belong wherever I choose to stand." Nicholas's hand found mine beneath the table, squeezing once steady and certain. And in that moment, I knew this war wasn't just mine to fight anymore, it was ours. But deep down, a question gnawed at me, cold and relentless. When love is forged in fire, can it truly survive when the flames burn out? The question haunted me long after Victoria's toast ended, echoing in my chest like a drum I couldn't silence. Nicholas stood beside me, unwavering, his presence shielding me from the worst of their stares. But even his strength couldn't erase the truth. I was an outsider in a world that would never fully accept me. That night after the wedding, we drove back in silence. The city lights blurred through the rain-slicked windows, and Miguel slept with his head against my shoulder, blissfully unaware of the battles his sister was fighting. Nicholas's hand rested on the wheel, but his gaze flicked to me often, as though he could feel my thoughts slipping away from him. When we reached the penthouse, I carried Miguel to his room, tucked him in, and lingered there longer than I needed to. Watching his small chest rise and fall, I whispered a promise I wasn't sure I could keep. "I'll protect you, no matter what it costs me." In the living room, Nicholas was waiting. He rose as I entered, his expression carved with both worry and determination. "Alice," he began, "I know what you're thinking. That you don't belong here. That walking away would make things easier. But listen to me, it wouldn't. It would only break us both." His words broke something in me. "Nicholas," I whispered, "I don't know how to live in a world that hates me just for standing beside you. And I don't know if I can ask Miguel to live in it either." He crossed the room in 2 strides, his hands cupping my face, his voice fierce. "Then let me fight for both of you. Don't you see, this isn't about where you came from or what they think of you. It's about us choosing each other again and again, no matter how loud the world screams." Tears filled my eyes. I wanted to believe him, God, I wanted to. But fear is a stubborn ghost. Even as he pulled me into his arms, holding me as if I were the only anchor in his storm, doubt whispered in my mind. What if love isn't enough? The answer came sooner than I expected. 2 weeks later, Nicholas was invited to speak at a charity gala. He asked me to come, but something inside me hesitated. I thought of the whispers, the laughter, the cruel smiles, and I told him no. Not tonight, I said. I need to breathe. He kissed my forehead, reluctant but understanding. I'll be back before midnight. But midnight came and he didn't return. Instead, my phone buzzed with a message, a photo sent from an unknown number. Nicholas at the gala, standing beside Victoria, her hand on his arm, her smile triumphant, his face unreadable. Beneath the photo, the words cut like knives, "See, toys are always replaced." The ground fell away beneath me. My heart pounded, my breath caught, and for one terrible moment I believed her. I sank to the floor, clutching the phone, my tears falling hot and heavy. Had I been a fool all along? Had love blinded me to the truth? I had always feared that I was nothing more than a passing amusement, destined to be discarded once the world grew tired of me. And yet, even in that crushing moment, another voice rose inside me, steady and defiant. No. Not without hearing his truth, not without fighting for mine. Because this story wasn't over. Not yet. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window with the phone clutched in my hands, staring at the cruel photo, until dawn bled into the sky. My heart told me to wait, to trust Nicholas. But my scars, the ones carved by years of rejection, by Victoria's venom, by every whisper that I was unworthy, screamed louder. When Nicholas finally returned, the sun was already rising. His tuxedo jacket was slung over his shoulder. His tie loosened, his hair disheveled from a long night. The moment he stepped through the door and saw my face, his expression changed. Concern darkening into something sharper. "You saw it," he said quietly. Not a question but a certainty. I stood, my voice breaking. "She sent me a photo, Nicholas. Her hand on your arm. Her smile like she'd already won. Tell me it wasn't what it looked like." He dropped his jacket onto the couch and crossed the room, his eyes burning. "Alice, I swear to you nothing happened." She cornered me, the cameras flashed, and I couldn't stop the photo. That's what she does, twists moments into weapons. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But the fear was still there, sharp and poisonous. And what if one day you realize she's right? That I'll never fit into this world, that loving me is just too hard. His hands gripped my shoulders, firm but gentle, grounding me. "Alice, look at me. I've had the world, the wealth, the power, the perfect fiancé who fit the part. And I've never felt emptier than I did then. But you?" His voice broke, raw and honest. "You make me feel alive. You make me feel real. Don't let her lies steal that from us." Tears blurred my vision as I searched his face, desperate for any sign of doubt. But there was none. Only conviction, fierce and unyielding. Still, the battle was far from over. Victoria escalated her war. Anonymous articles surfaced online, painting me as manipulative, claiming I had seduced Nicholas for money, that Miguel wasn't even my brother, but a child I used as a sympathy prop. Each lie cut deeper, dragging me back into the shadows I had fought so hard to escape. One afternoon I found Miguel crying in his room, the tablet in his hands flashing with cruel headlines. "Alice," he sobbed, "why are they saying these things about you? About me?" I took the tablet from him, my hands trembling, and pulled him into my arms. "Because some people are afraid of the truth," I whispered, though my own voice cracked. "But we know who we are, and no lie can change that." But even as I said it, I felt the weight pressing down. How many battles could I fight before I broke completely? How many lies could I endure before the truth drowned beneath them? That night, Nicholas found me again on the balcony, my body wrapped in his jacket, my eyes swollen from crying. He didn't speak at first. He just stood beside me, watching the city lights flicker against the dark. Finally, he said, "If staying with me is destroying you, Alice, tell me, and I'll let you go." The words shattered me. Because they weren't a threat or a plea, they were a sacrifice. He was giving me a way out, even if it tore him apart. I turned to him, my voice breaking. "Leaving you won't save me. It'll only kill me in another way." And for the first time I admitted the truth I had been too afraid to speak. "Nicholas, I love you." His arms wrapped around me instantly, pulling me against his chest, his voice rough in my hair. Then let that be enough. Let us be enough. For a fleeting moment the storm quieted. In his embrace I felt safe, even if the world outside still burned with lies. But deep down I knew the war with Victoria wasn't over. Because women like her don't stop when they're losing. They stop only when there's nothing left to destroy. Victoria's final strike came not with whispers, but with fire. It was the night of Nicholas's keynote speech, an event broadcast live to investors, politicians, and the public. I had begged him not to let me attend, worried that my presence would give Victoria another weapon. But he insisted. "You're part of my life, Alice. I won't keep you in the shadows to protect appearances." So I stood at his side as the cameras flashed, my heart hammering in my chest. For a while it felt almost normal, Nicholas speaking with passion. The audience captivated, his words flowing like they always did when he was in his element. I almost let myself believe we were winning. Then in the middle of his speech, the screen behind him flickered, the lights dimmed, and suddenly a video filled the hall. Grainy, distorted footage of me pieced together from old security cameras, paparazzi shots, and cruelly edited clips. In one, I adjusted my blouse in the car window. In another, I walked out of his penthouse, with Miguel, his face blurred but still recognizable. Overlaid was a voice that wasn't mine, spliced together to sound like me saying, "I'll use him, take everything, then disappear." Gasps erupted. Murmurs spread through the audience like wildfire. My knees buckled, shame slamming into me like a tidal wave. "No," I whispered, my voice breaking. "That's not me." Nicholas's jaw clenched, fury blazing in his eyes. He stepped forward, shutting down the projection with a single command, then faced the crowd. "This is a lie," he thundered, his voice echoing through the hall. "A desperate attempt to destroy the woman I love. And if you believe it, you are no better than the one who created it." Silence fell heavy and tense. Cameras zoomed in, flashes blinding, but all I could see was Nicholas standing tall, shielding me with everything he had. Afterward, chaos erupted online. Some believed the video, others rallied behind us, but one thing was certain. Victoria had revealed the full extent of her cruelty, and in doing so she had crossed a line she could never return from. Investigators traced the footage back to her within days. The spliced audio, the surveillance hacks, the money trail, it was all hers. This time there was no denying it. She was finished. But victory felt nothing like I imagined. The night the news broke, I sat on the balcony, the city glowing below. Nicholas joined me, his hand covering mine. "It's over," he said softly. "She can't hurt us anymore." I nodded, but tears slid down my cheeks. "It's not just her, Nicholas. It's everything. The judgment, the stares, the lies. I don't know if I'll ever feel free of it." He pulled me close, his voice raw. "Then let's stop trying to please a world that will never accept us. Let's live for us, for you, for Miguel, for the life we choose, not the one they expect." For the first time I let myself believe it was possible. That maybe love wasn't about fitting into someone else's world, but building one of our own. I pressed my forehead to his, whispering through my tears, "I'm still afraid." "So am I," he admitted. "But I'd rather be afraid with you than safe without you." In that moment, I knew the truth. Love hadn't erased the scars of my past, or silenced the voices of doubt. But it had given me something stronger than fear. Something to fight for, something to hold on to when the world tried to tear me apart. And maybe that was enough. If my story touched your heart, if you've ever been underestimated, humiliated, or told you don't belong, but still found the strength to stand tall, please, like this video, share it so others can find courage, and subscribe for more stories that remind us that even in the darkest storms, we are not alone. And tell me in the comments, what moment in your life taught you that your worth is not defined by others?